Hey guys, so here we are back at it with the videos. We are starting a brand new unit, Domain 4, not at school, but it's okay. We got it. We're totally going to do this. So we are starting on Standard 15. If you remember where we finished up, we were at the end of Domain 3. I hope that all of you were able to go on and take that test. Got some really good responses there. Enjoyed getting to respond to you guys on that. But anyway, so Domain 3 is talking about how the US was building up an industry. And then towards the end, we've got the progressive era with trying to make these reforms. And then we talked a little bit about imperialism and how we've started to kind of create this empire, especially after the Spanish American War. So Domain 4 goes straight into World War I. So our learning target, the first thing we look at is why did the U.S. get involved in World War I? So unfortunately, we don't really go into the details about the war in Europe. Super, super interesting stuff. I know a lot of people really like to learn about that stuff, so sorry that we're not really doing that. But super interesting, completely changes the way warfare is fought. You got to think about things like trench warfare, where people are basically like digging in and like digging a hole and sitting in the hole and shooting at people, and things like tanks and airplanes. Just a very, very different type of warfare than we had ever seen before. So super interesting stuff, but unfortunately, we don't get into that. I'm going to give you just a little tiny bit of background information. So in 1914, that's when the war starts. Basically, what happens is you have Austria-Hungary and Serbia, these two nations that don't get along already. The Austrian heir, Franz Ferdinand, he gets assassinated while in Serbia. So they get into war with each other, and then they pull in all these other countries because of the alliance system. So having an ally is like having a buddy. It's like having someone that you say, you watch my back, I'll watch your back, that kind of thing. And so they each pull in their different allies, and that's why so many nations got involved. So you've got Austria, Hungary, and Germany versus France and Great Britain and Russia, right? So our President Woodrow Wilson says, whoa, we don't want to get into this. So he asked Congress for a declaration of neutrality and says, we need to stay out of this. If you remember, the Monroe Doctrine and the Roosevelt corollary that we just talked about, they said, the whole we'll stay out of your business, you stay out of ours. Well, part of that was staying out of European affairs. So basically, we said, this is in Europe. This is between European nations. We don't want to get involved. We have no reason to get involved. So we're going to stay neutral, even though that was really difficult for a lot of people in the US, because you got to think most people in the US are immigrants. And so the countries that are fighting each other are the countries that they came from. So obviously people are going to have these like loyalties to their former nation. So it was hard for us to stay neutral. But that's definitely what Woodrow Wilson wanted us to do. But we know that we were in World War I. So how did we go from saying we're not getting involved, we're going to be neutral, to getting involved? So basically what happens is, even though we said we were neutral, we tended to side with the allies. That would be Britain and France. And so that's those were like our people, right? So those were the people that we tended to side with the most, right? And they were fighting against Germany. And so Germany starts to use their submarines, which was another kind of new thing. They start to use their submarines to sink the Ally ships. Right. And so what the ally ships started doing is they started to wave a neutral flag, saying like, hey, we're from a neutral nation. We're just shipping goods. We're not shipping war materials. And Germany caught on to that. And so Germany said, fine, we're going to sink everything. So they start sinking all ships, not just enemy ones, because they can't be sure who's enemy and who's not. And so they just start shooting down ships left and right. And it doesn't matter if it's a battleship or if it's a trading ship or if it is a cruise ship. They don't care. They are shooting down everything. So we're starting to see that, and obviously that we don't like that, and we're not okay with that. It's disrupting our trade. We were in a recession at the time. It was disrupting our trade. We weren't happy about that. And then the Germans sink the Lusitania, which was a passenger ship, which was carrying 128 Americans, and all of them died on board. So that was kind of the final straw, like this buildup of you've got this, we call it unrestricted submarine warfare. So the unrestricted submarine warfare that the Germans were doing, that starts building up, and that's basically what pulls us into World War One. And then you also have, in addition to that, you have the Zimmermann telegram. So basically, what happens is America comes out and says, Germany, you have to stop the unrestricted submarine warfare. Like it's got to end. And so the Germans stop for a little while. But then in 1917, they say, you know what? I think we're going to pick that back up. And they know that the U.S. isn't going to be happy about it. So the German foreign minister, Arthur Zimmermann, see his name there, he sends Mexico a letter or a telegram and asks Mexico to declare war on America. Mexico says no, but the letter was intercepted and it was published. So not only the Germans are asking the Mexicans to declare war on the United States, basically to keep us busy so that they can go on doing their unrestricted submarine warfare and we won't be there to interfere because we'll be in a war with Mexico over here. So after that was intercepted, it was published in like all the newspapers. And so now all of the Americans are seeing that the Germans were trying to get Mexico to declare war on us. And so, of course, they are not happy about that at all. And so basically, you've got this buildup of, we're trying to help our friends, our allies. You've got the unrestricted submarine warfare, and then the Zimmermann telegram, and all those things have built up on top of each other to the point where Woodrow Wilson can no longer keep us neutral. We can no longer stay out of this. We've basically been pulled into it at this point. So then the next thing we look at are the specific impacts in America. So economic, political, social, how did World War I affect America specifically? So looking at the economic impacts, so this is really interesting. I don't know, I guess because it's kind of pertinent to what we're dealing with right now. But the government commands that the U.S. converts to a war economy.